oh yeah, I can't see anybody. I thought I would be able to, but I'm going to just pretend you're all there. I'm really, yes, Winston asked me a couple days ago, so it's been a bit of a whirlwind, but I am really excited to be here and to share my story with all of you tonight. My story begins with an ending. About 13 years ago, I went through a divorce, and for any of you that have been through a breakup, you know that that is not something that happens quickly. It is a long process of agony and upset and frustration and fear and anxiety and pain and tears. And at that time in my life, I would say I leaned pretty heavily on my friends. Like I would wake up in the morning with that pit in my stomach and I would go to work, and I worked with some fabulous women, and we'd go to lunch and I would just talk and talk. And it was the same story every day. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. It's not working. And to their credit, I don't know why they stuck around, because it was a really boring story, I'm telling you. But they stuck with me. And they told me that I was going to get through it, and that I was valuable, and that we'll find a way. And they stood there. And I mean, I'm telling you, days, weeks, months, years. And I got so sick of my own voice with this story, but that wasn't enough. I really needed them to be there, and they were. And so together, you know, I got through it. And then after a couple of years, sun starts to come out again for my life, and wouldn't you know it, damn it, I had to go through another breakup about 3 years later. My marriage I was with him for 17 years, and we had a daughter together, so the pain was really hard to think about losing that relationship. But this next one was even a longer relationship. It was one that started when I was a teenager. I grew up in a small town in BC, and our high school was about 250 students from grades 7 to 12, so we were a pretty close-knit group. And on the weekends, we'd go out into the bush and start a big bonfire and blast our 80s heavy metal music, and the drinks were flowing. Boys would drink beer, and girls would drink wine coolers. If anyone's from that era, mine was Canada Cooler Rockaberry, which, just thinking about it now, it was just pure sugar. I can't even imagine. But luckily, as I became an adult, my taste became more sophisticated, and gone were the days of bush bashes, and replaced instead with barbecues and dinner parties where it was appropriate to show up with a baguette and cheese and a bottle of wine. My friends and I really enjoyed learning about wine as young adults. We felt like we were grown-ups and sophisticated, and learning about the flavor of different grapes of wine and which food it paired with. Did you like red or white? Were you dry or sweet? And soon getting together with girlfriends meant sharing a bottle of wine or going for wine tastings. A few years move on, and we start to get married, and our careers start to blossom, and again, our palate expanded. Now it's martinis and gin and tonic, scotch, whiskey. And of course, right from the beginning, when we were teenagers, we knew the dangers of alcohol, and that it was our responsibility to have to learn how to manage that. And so always in the back of the mind, it was there. But know your limit, play within it. That's the tagline for gambling, right? But with alcohol, it's enjoy responsibly. So what does that look like? It's up to each of us to decide what moderation looks like. But moderation is an interesting word because it's kind of dependent on the situation. For example, probably 3 drinks at a baby shower, not so good. But Friday night going out with friends, that's probably just getting started. So that line that you had to keep it steady, it was kind of a moving target, right? To make sure that I was doing okay, the way that I kept it steady was I would look around myself and say, am I drinking any differently than the people around me? And the answer was no. So I thought I was doing pretty well. And then this thing called life goes and throws you a curveball, right? My marriage started to crumble, and I already touched on how long and hard that was. The anguish, the fear, the pain, the worry. Wine had this way of taking the edge off. It was a way to get some temporary relief, and sometimes I would even need a couple glasses just to go to sleep at night. I remember a girls' weekend, my best friends and I, we got together, and God, I needed to get away. And of course, girls' weekend, wine, lots of laughs, of course, lots of tears. It's girls. It was great. But I remember the flight home. I was so sick, like so sick. And I decided on that flight that I needed to take a break. I needed a mental break. I needed a physical break. I'm going to take a 3-month hiatus from alcohol and get my head straight. And what's interesting about those 3 months is those were the last 3 months of my marriage. Coincidence? Maybe not. That temporary relief that wine used to serve, I think, was actually serving more of the purpose of delaying the kinds of conversation and the kind of decisions that you can only make when you're really clear of mind and clear of heart. So I did it, got through it, and look at me, I went 3 months without drinking. Score. Who needs a drink? Yeah, that's a way to celebrate. So what did I do? Cracked a bottle of wine because that was a milestone and I could celebrate. Now, remember, this is a 17-year relationship that I just ended. I was now in my late 30s, and I didn't know what the next chapter of my life was going to look like. So to be honest, I kind of felt like a kid again. What do I like? What do I want to do? And so I got out there and I had some fun. And I had some times that ended up not being so fun. And I made some choices that I'm a bit ashamed about. And I remember waking up one morning and I knew that this was going to be my last hangover. I'd let it get better than me. It got away from me, and I couldn't control it. And I was making really stupid decisions. So I knew I had a drinking problem and that I had to stop. I had to get out of that relationship. But unlike getting out of my marriage, where I leaned on my friends day in and day out, told my story, this decision came with, I can only describe it like a backpack full of shame. I was so embarrassed. And I was so ashamed, I didn't want to tell anybody. I thought that if I told someone, then they're going to hold me to it, and honestly, I didn't know that I would stick to my decision. I knew I had to be accountable to myself, but I wasn't really trusting myself these days, and so I decided to share my decision with 2 people in my life. One of them was a very good friend that I knew that I could trust to be there for me and to not judge me. And the other person was my mom. My mom was the only person in my life who hated my drinking. Well, to be fair, she hated everybody's drinking. She thought the whole idea was really stupid. And I used to argue with her about it, of course. Come on, it's cool. It's so delicious. It feels so good. This wine has a bit of a cherry flavor. You'll love it. Come on, give it a try. So telling her that I had a problem, telling her that I took it too far, believe me, that was a conversation I only ever wanted to have once. When I made this decision, there was a few things that I was expecting. I was expecting to have cravings. I was expecting to find new ways to have fun. I was expecting to be in some uncomfortable situations. But what I wasn't quite prepared for is the way that people would react to my decision. So, scenario, a couple months in, feeling like, okay, I think I got this, it's good. And at the office, tough week, so we get together for a quick happy hour before going home on a Friday, and someone offers me a glass of wine. I, of course, take a soft drink instead. The reaction, you're not gonna have a drink? What's going on? And I remember, do I or don't I? Do I or don't I, right? And I thought, yeah, I got this. So I said, actually, I've decided that I've stopped drinking, and I've actually been sober for a couple months now. The reaction, oh my gosh, what happened? Are you okay? Did something happen? Were you just drinking too much? How much were you drinking? You know, sometimes I wonder if I drink too much. Do you think X number of drinks per week is okay? I mean, how did you come to this decision? Is it just a break, or is it like a problem, like a forever thing? And I kind of found myself answering these questions, but remember, this is the girl with the backpack of shame. And so how did I answer it? I went, well, let's pull this one out. That's happened. And then, well, that happened. And I felt the need to justify it, not just to them, but to myself as well, because I didn't really have the words to say what and why. And I blurted all this stuff out, which was actually really awful. It's one thing to carry it, but then to share it, yeah, that wasn't going to happen again. So there and then that day, I decided, we don't need to let people know what I'm doing. I can fake it. When I'm out at a party, I just get a frilly-looking drink and nobody's the wiser, so that's fine. Now, of course, the people that were close to me in my life knew, but other than that, yeah. She didn't get up on stage and talk about this kind of stuff. It's interesting, though, because their questions came from a place of concern. And I wasn't mad at them. I would have asked the same questions. But what's interesting when I have a chance to look back on it now, the concern friends had with my divorce, it was treated like this thing that happened, and they checked in to see how am I doing, was it the right decision, is life getting better? But with a drinking problem, it's this thing that I'm now saddled with. So the concern is about how I'm managing my problem, and you know, is it going to be okay? So it's different. So let's talk about the problem. I'm divorced, but I didn't label myself as this person incapable of love for the rest of my life. But with a drinking problem, what did that mean? We are asked to self-regulate, and if things go sideways, then we self-diagnose that we have a problem. But for me, I didn't know where I landed on that scale. Was this something that I was going to be fighting with the rest of my life? Was I walking on this slippery slope that at any moment I could have one drink and fall right back to where I was? I didn't know, and that was terrifying. To say that my first few years of sobriety were challenging, yeah, I was tempted. I had cravings. I was in situations that were uncomfortable. It was tough, but you know what? I stuck with it. I made the commitment to myself, and actually the decision just to say no was the easiest one. If I had decided no, I was going to moderate and figure that out, that sounded messy, so just the answer was no, and that was how I stayed with it. But the last year of my life was a real game changer. A good friend of mine recommended a book to me about women and alcohol, and for the first time in my life, this person talked about alcohol as being put on the hot seat. Like, maybe alcohol is the problem here, not the person that drinks it. I had never thought about it like that before. And what's interesting is that they drove the point home by comparing it to smoking. So, how about this scenario? 19 years old, happy birthday, kid, welcome to adulthood. Here, have a smoke. Smoking is fun. Makes you feel good, and yeah, you look pretty cool. But it's dangerous, so just be careful. Millions of people around the world enjoy smoking, but some take it too far and become addicted. So enjoy it, but be careful. We know smoking is dangerous. We know smoking is addictive. And kicking the habit is one of the hardest things to do. Am I right? It takes dedication, willpower, perseverance. And when you tell people that you've quit smoking, congratulations, high five, good for you. Kicking the habit. Doesn't that sound cute? Because I got a drinking problem over here. Kicking the habit. How is it any different? That day, I took the backpack off. And I forgave myself. And in April this year, I celebrated 10 years of being sober. And when I say celebrated, I know what y'all thinking. No, I did not have a drink. But what I did do is I came out of the dark, and I posted on Instagram, and I posted on Facebook, which is something that I never do anyway, but I celebrated this milestone publicly. And I had people from like way back in my life reach out to me and just say, I had no idea, oh my gosh. And I'm like, no, that doesn't surprise me. I kind of didn't talk about it at all. But that one person that I confided in that 10 years ago, he phoned me. He and I have kind of lost touch over the last few years with COVID and life and all that stuff, but he phoned me and he said, congratulations. How would you feel about coming on stage and telling your story? If he'd asked me that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago, my answer, I don't have a story. But you know what, today, yeah, I do. And the reason I'm here is because if I had these words 10 years ago, that quitting something that's bad for you, that is not serving you well, comes from a position of strength and perseverance and willpower, rather than a place of being broken and weak and something wrong with you, that would have made my journey a lot better. So now when people come up to me and they say, I'm thinking about changing my relationship with alcohol, I say, that is a bold choice. Congratulations and high five. Thanks.